I received my monthly financial package from my co-working operator partner, and there is a massive expense that I did not know was going to be on my financial package with no explanation. What do I do? So as I go through my weekly routines, I spend a lot of time talking to other operators, owners, doing a lot of reading on what's going on in our industry, and came across an article or a post about a discrepancy or a potential discrepancy where an operator placed a giant expense on a P&L for a month, way more than what was budgeted, with no prior written consent, with no variance explanation. And when asked about it, explained to the owner, this is what we did and we're not going to change it. So we're going to use that example, and I'll give a little more detail about it to reiterate some of the pieces that we've talked about in the past of what's, the important parts of a management agreement. So the article or the post that I'm referencing happened maybe 2 weeks ago. And, I haven't been able to spend time to say this is 100% true or not. So we're not going to name names on who did what. That's not the important part for us, for what we're doing. The important part for us is this validates what a series of things that we've talked about in the past on the podcast, is the importance of each part of a management agreement, and really the importance more so of what if things aren't going right or aren't going well. Because remember, if you're winning, everybody's happy, right? If I'm making more revenue than we promised and I'm spending less on expenses than I thought, there's no discussion. But if revenue is coming in way below what I hoped and expenses are way over, without explanation or conversation, then we're going to start to get into trouble. So, as I said, this particular conversation that's on the internet, a co-working operator put a massive expense on a P&L. Obviously, the way it is framed did not get pre-approval from the owners, and then did not justify it afterwards when they were asked about it. So it happens, and it makes what we do and what we're doing here, right, valid, and it validates the detail that we go into on the podcast and we go into in our ebook. It's really important for owners to pick the right partner, to make sure you have conflict resolution or mediation, arbitration. What happens if, right? So each section of your management agreement, what happens if this doesn't work out? What happens if you miss that? What happens if this happens? And include that in your management agreement. Like I said, it's easier to do that up front while you're creating the relationship than it is to try to figure it out after something happens. Because if you are surprised as an owner by something that happens and you go to your agreement and say, okay, how do we address this? And there's no language in there going, uh-oh, now what? And you call an operator and the operator's like, well, it's not in the management agreement, so deal with it. What are you going to do? So if it's true, we don't, again, we didn't ask all the people that wrote about it or commented on it, but use it as an example. If this really happened, then it stinks, and there just wasn't proper language in the agreement to prevent it from happening. Most good agreements have language that say, look, I provided you a framework for expenses because I'm an expert and I should be able to pretty much outline and provide detail on what's normally the range of of dollars I'm going to spend on expenses. Something like office supplies is usually driven off of the number of members or your revenue, right? So we use a formula for office supplies as a percentage of revenue, because if you're running a good operation, it usually falls in a certain amount, 1 to 2.5% of your revenue should be spent on office supplies. And it depends what you put in that category, but we really try to only put office supplies in office supplies, like every other category. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, in our agreements and in good agreements, we say if we know that we're going to surpass a budgeted amount by more than $500. For instance, if there's every now and again, we'll get charged a fee to upgrade software or hardware. And we know it's going to happen every now and again, but we don't know exactly when. But hey, I might get charged $1,000 this month for some sort of, and happens maybe once every year or two. But what I'll do, I'll email the ownership and say, hey, our agreement says every now and again we're going to receive a charge. We don't know when, but our agreement says if we know we're going to receive a charge that's more than $500 above what we normally spend in this category, we're going to just make you aware of it. Here's an email to say, hey, we're going to get $1,000 charge this month. It's only going to happen one time this year, and kind of get your pre-approval or just a heads up that it's coming. So that's written in our agreement, just to, again, provide owners some easy, or make them feel better about how we're managing the expenses. So what happened in this instance is, they obviously didn't do that with ownership, and they just charged everything to this account and paid for it out of one location, and then gave the expenses, or gave the office supplies to how many other locations nearby, and then just put it on the P&L. And they didn't even explain it in a variance report, right? That's another episode that we talked about how important a variance report is in your financial package. They didn't even put an explanation. They didn't say, okay, we spent $33,000 on office supplies and the budget was $1,000. Here's why. They just put it in there and sent it off to ownership and said, yeah. And ownership was like, whoa, what is this? And they're like, yeah, we bought office supplies for a bunch of locations and charged them to you. Like I said, I'm not giving an opinion on, is it factual? Is it good or bad? We're using it on this podcast just to say, look, sometimes these things do happen. Here's an example. Is there, looking from the outside in, is there anything that we can pass on to owners to say, you know what, if this did happen, if you had the proper language in the agreement, maybe it'd be easier to rectify it. We end every episode by reminding people, if you would like to learn more about management agreements or good management agreements, how to pick partners, anything to do with the flexible operating businesses, feel free to look at our website, launchworkplaces.com/landlords. We have an ebook now with probably 50 or 60 pages of different things to look for, how to do deals, how to construct deals, how to pick partners, how to look at financials, everything from A to Z. If that's not enough to satisfy you, reach out to me on LinkedIn, and happy to have a conversation or provide feedback or help landlords any way I can, whether you're looking to use us as a partner for a space you have, or if you want an opinion on any other deal you're doing. I don't have to be in your building to help you. Just feel free to reach out, either send me a message, write me a comment, just trying to help building owners navigate this world until, we get a little more mature and established standards and everybody's on the same playbook. Still going to be a while. I'm available to help any way I can. So don't be shy.